Hey everyone, welcome back. In case you haven't noticed, in the summer I just stopped from one day to the next podcasting. Reality is I needed to take time off and do some introspection. I was exhausted and I had to realize that my body was just undergoing transition because I'm moving into the menopausal phase. Now I know it's a natural part of life, but that means I have to assess my energy capacity and how will I go forward as an entrepreneur from here. And this leads me to this week's guest. It was like the perfect timing. I want you to meet Eileen. Now, Eileen is into fashion. She was the co-founder of Cucumber Clothing. It's a multi-award winning company. And she's now transitioning into growing her community, the East Asian Girl Gang. And she's also going to be hosting an event at the prestigious Allbright Club here in the UK on modern beauty and exploring the East Asian feminine identity. She has so much wisdom and insight that I spent a whole hour speaking to her. Actually, every time I meet her, I just want to learn more and more from her. Having said that, I decided to split the episode into two. So part one is about her entrepreneur and speaking about her overcoming her fear of public speaking and how she's going to be working with it or using it going forward, and even mentoring. In our conversation, we also talk about her heritage influencing her career, which is just in time with the theme of the month, the East and Southeast Asian Heritage Month. Enjoy the episode. Who's Eileen? How would you describe yourself?
How would I describe myself? So that's such an interesting question because I think at different times in our lives we answer that so differently. So sometimes we're defined by our job, sometimes we're defined by our relationships, sometimes, whether you're a mother or a wife or husband or a partner, or sometimes, you're the CEO or something. So, but at this stage of my life, I'm a bit in flux. So I would probably say that I'm a serial entrepreneur. I am the founder of the East Asian Girl Gang. I am a mother. I'm a wife. I am a daughter. And yeah, I guess that encapsulates most of the things that I do. But yeah, it's hard to just sort of define one little bit of it.
Okay. So what is the one part right now in your life that is playing a pivotal role in your life?
Good question. So two bits. So one is East Asian Girl Gang, which I started last year, which we'll talk about a bit more later, but which I'm growing, and as I'm growing it, I feel like I'm growing as well because I'm learning lots and lots of new things. And one of the nicest things about it is it forces me to interact with people, as quite often jobs do. It forces you to interact with people of all different ages and all different stages of life, and that is such a gift. Because as you get older, it's quite easy just to relax into just hanging out with people who are your kind of age, your kind of stage of life, all kind of doing the same things. And it's so lovely, and it's a privilege to be able to hang out with people who are doing completely different things and are completely different, really exciting stages of their lives. So I love that. And then the other big thing that's happening is Cucumber Clothing, which I co-founded 7 years ago with a great friend of mine. And we are still good friends. For those of you out there thinking about, having a co-founder, it can work, has worked very well, but we are now shuttering it. We decided to close it last month. So that's been quite a big,
that must be huge.
It has been really huge, but it's something we've discussed for a long time. And the good thing is we are both in complete agreement over what we're doing, how it's going to play out, the timeline and everything. So that's also, it just makes it much easier. And also there's a time and place for everything. And we've had so much out of it that's been positive. And now we feel that that's kind of come to an end. And unless we really moved in a different direction and doubled down and invested a huge, more kind of emotional and just hard work, raise investment and all of that, it's not going to work. So now is quite a good time to say, you know what, that was fantastic, but we're moving on to the next thing. And we shut in a month when Farfetch, Matches, Ted Baker, Muji Europe. I mean, the retail landscape it's tricky. Even Gucci at the moment, Kering Group, which has Gucci as their flagship brand, is really struggling. So if Gucci's struggling, I can't feel too bad.
Well, I know a lot in the retail industry. There's so much changes going on. So, but what I find interesting of your story is almost like there is this. It's like a kaleidoscope. You know, there's so many different colors coming together, and while one is just moving out, you're kind of pivoting it and creating something beautiful out of it as well. So that's how I'm seeing it. That you're in this in a way, like in a lovely transition, but also it's creative because it's not necessarily, I'm sure, which is a question I'm asking myself, how are you moving your transferable skills from what you learned from Cucumber Clothing? Because it must have been a lot into now what's going to be East Asian Girl Gang as well. And you're doing a lot around it as well, from what I understand.
So, Katie, that is such a good question, because I think if a lot of people said, oh, it's so sad that you're shutting down, and oh, what a shame you've worked so hard. And obviously there's that aspect of it. No one likes to think we tried something, it didn't work out. Okay, that's very obvious. But the plus side has been that the person I was before we started is very much a different person than who I am now. And it's been a really positive change. So I've become a really, somebody who really enjoys public speaking, doing this kind of thing. Pre-Cucumber, I just hated being filmed. I hated hearing my voice. I hated talking in public. I hated standing up in front of people.
And being on a podcast.
That's all changed. I really enjoy it now. I really enjoy speaking in public. The big turning point was being on Dragon's Den, when I until that point, I'd always said to my co-founder, Nancy, if we're doing anything in front of the camera, you're doing it. She was fine with that. She's very confident about doing things like that, and I wasn't. But when we did Dragon's Den, I knew I didn't have a choice. And so I sort of threw myself into it, and I had some lessons from a great friend, lovely woman who's an actor, who gave me some speech lessons and just showed me how to project my voice a bit more, a very quiet voice that used to worry me no one could hear me, gave me just sort of instruction on how to stand. And all those small things made such a huge difference. And now, as I said, I really enjoy it. I can build a website. I do loads of writing and content writing. I know how to do all the social medias. You know, there's just so many boxes I can tick now that I wouldn't have been able to 7 or 8 years ago. It's, you know, it's great.
But even greater than that, you also do a lot of public speaking, advocating, and supporting a lot of other businesses as well, from my understanding.
We've been really lucky in that part of our ethos as a company was from the very beginning, and whether that's because we were a bit older, whether it's because we'd had families, we really wanted to be a sustainable and ethical brand. And that meant from the beginning we supported charities. We did a lot of work around sustainability and trying to make sure our brand was really sustainable in a very kind of granular way, because nowadays, especially for a big company, you can pay to have somebody come in and do like a really thorough 360 and pick everything out. If you're a very small company, you can't afford to pay someone else to do that. You just have to try and figure it out yourself. Yeah, you know, it's a sort of catch-22. But you know, things like we made everything in London. Our factories in London. We bought everything within the UK except for our fabrics. Our fabrics we brought from outside because they're technical. Once they're here, everything was done in the UK. Everything, yeah. We bought all our trim, all our recycled packaging, all our organic, biodynamic, compostable bags, and our factory, sample maker, our pattern maker, grader. They were all within what we called, it was our 5-mile radius. So everything was in a 5-mile radius of North London. So it's something you can feel really good about, I think. And all of those things, they're all, as you say, little bits of a mosaic. And it's not like you experience it, then you forget about it. No, you take all of that on. So I feel really invested in the idea of sustainability. I don't know a huge amount, but I feel like I know a lot more than I did.
Well, you know much more than I do.
And we did a lot of talks around that. We did a lot of talks around being midlife founders and what that's like being female founders and what that's like, because, you know, for most people, even now, I think if you say, oh, I'm speaking to a founder, the idea will be they'll probably be 25 years old and, you know, living in Hackney with a beanie and riding a single speed bike and having like a turmeric latte or something, you know, because there's this idea that to be a founder of something, generally you're young guy.
Can we break that myth? Because I consider myself a female founder.
Absolutely. So I think we are. I think that's changing, but it's because the first series of really big founders, you know, people like, who are now no longer so young, but people like Mark Zuckerberg and, so, you know, they were all these young techie guys wearing their jeans and their T-shirts who came out of Silicon Valley. And that in people's minds is what is a founder. But I think that's really changing now.
Well, I do understand what you're saying. Being 48, I redesigned everything last year as well. And it hasn't been an easy journey. It's, you know, it's like everybody always thinks, oh yeah, but you're 48, you have it set. And you go, no, I'm not, doesn't mean that all those years experience, you give it up. You're taking an investment on yourself. You're taking a risk and a belief in yourself, at least, I think. And that's what it sounds like what you did with Cucumber Clothing. Sounds like that also with your speaking career. So this is where I have to ask you, when was that moment you realized that you got comfortable sharing your message, sharing your story, sharing your business?
So I'm going to create a metaphor here. So my husband's a really big wild swimmer. He loves cold water swimming, and he started about 10 years ago. And I was at the beginning not into it. So he decided with his friends to go and do the World Championship cold water swimming, which is up in Windermere in January when it was 3 degrees. And he said, oh, come with me. It'd be so much fun. There are loads of us coming. And I said, I really don't want to go. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be roped into it. I really don't want to do this. It'll be fine. You don't need to swim. So I gave in. I said, fine, let's just go. The night before we left, one of the other women on the trip said, oh my goodness, so-and-so is really ill and she can't be in the relay. Will you take her place? And I was like, I just knew this was going to happen. Yes, of course I will. I don't want to. So I did it, and I put my swimsuit on. I swam in 3-degree water. And do you know what? I lived. It was okay. And I would say that was exactly what happened with this public speaking with Dragon's Den, which is, it was very nerve-wracking. It's like this whole production. It's really fun, interesting. It's, you know, it's an amazing experience, but it's quite nerve-wracking. And after I did that, I thought, it didn't kill me. Wait a second. It didn't kill me. And that was kind of okay. And then after that, I thought, do you know what? I like being able to speak about what I do. And I like being able to share what I've done, what my plans are. I like being able to involve other people in it and interest people in it. And I started doing more mentoring then. So at the moment I have 3 mentees right now. And I've done mentoring now for a couple of years, because even though we were a small business, for anybody else starting a small business, they're kind of very simple things that you should know or you think about, and resources that if you don't know about them, it's a shame. But if you do know about them, they can be really helpful. So I would say that Dragon's Den was definitely the marker point. And after that, everything fell into place because it was fine. It was like that 3 degrees. It didn't kill me. So now I love cold water swimming. That was a changing point for me as well. It's like, it didn't kill me. That was actually kind of fun. Yeah.
It does make sense a lot. Can I ask you one question? Because I talk a lot about heritage. Your heritage is as wonderfully like a tapestry like mine. Can you share a little bit before I ask the next question?
Absolutely. So I am Japanese Canadian. I was born in Canada in Vancouver, and my father was Japanese from Japan. My mother was Japanese, but first generation. So I call myself sort of second and a half generation.
Okay.
And then I moved to the UK very long time ago, decades ago. So I also am British. So I feel like I have 3 heritages now, which is very nice. And there, I would say that my Japanese heritage has been something that I've carried with me all my life, but it's not until now that I've had time to really explore it, which has been, again, a really lovely, interesting experience.
I was going to ask you in terms of when it comes to public speaking, because there's this myth that, or I don't know if it's a myth, but there's also this cultural collectiveness thinking, Asian women don't really speak up. They're always very mindful. They're always told, don't speak, don't be so bold in a way. Don't be so assertive. Now, if you're a second and a half generation,
what does that mean?
What does that mean in terms of that?
So I think that, what do I think? I think that is a very good point. I think that culturally, and obviously being East Asian, East Asia is a huge geographical area. It has literally 2 billion people in it, or more than 2 billion people. So I can only generalize so much.
Yeah.
But I would say, as a rule, if I'm going to generalize, you're quite right. I think that East Asian people, male and female, but more for female, even more extreme for female, is you don't speak up. I think there's a saying like, don't be the nail that sticks, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. You don't want it. Whereas in the West, it's all about, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's literally the opposite. If you're the one squeaking, somebody will come and help you out. In Japan, it's like, if you're the nail that sticks out, you're going to get pounded down.
Yeah.
Get back into place. And so I do think that for people coming from that culture, working in the West or living in the West, there's this almost an inhibition about speaking out or saying anything that might either embarrass you, embarrass your company, might be time wasting, might be perceived as being wasteful or wrong. Whereas the Western attitude is much more, just go for it. Like, just ask the question. Like, why wouldn't you? See where it leads you. And if it's not pertinent, who cares? We'll just move on. So it's a very different way of looking at things. And I think I fall somewhere in between. So I feel reasonably capable now of speaking out. But I would say for a very long time in my life, I didn't. I really didn't. And that's one of the big changes starting at Cucumber that has been for me, that personally I feel much more able to speak out. And that inhibition has, I'm not going to say it's gone, but it's certainly been minimized.
Is it an inhibition or is it a way of always... I'll share with you from South Asian perspective. So I'm born South Asian, first immigrant, I would say, right? Parents. But it's even a little more complex than that. But then you go live in the Dutch environment or a Caribbean environment. So I feel it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of 4 heritages just flowing in it. Because you and I share this, travel and living elsewhere in the world as well. So that's a heritage of its own you take along as well. So how, I called it for a long time a conflict, and that held me back on speaking my mind or my voice. So with your case, you're calling it inhibition, but is it inhibition or weighing it?
Well, I'm sure there's a bit of both, but certainly for me, it was an inhibition. So I felt if I was in a group of maybe 5 to 6 people, I feel quite free to speak out. As soon as it was more than that, I would never be the one to put up my hand. I would never. And it was quite funny. I went to talk the other night with a bunch of women, all of them who are much younger than me. And the room was quite empty. We got there quite early. And my friend who was ahead of me went and she sat down right at literally at the front in the first row, right in front of the speaker. And I said to her, wow, I would never have sat there. Even now at my age, I would have sat in the middle or maybe closer to the back. So
never in the front.
Never in the front. It's sort of like putting yourself too forward.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. So I think that is an inhibition, and I think it's a cultural inhibition, and I think that it's something that we learn as we grow up, that you don't put yourself forward, you don't push forward, you don't put yourself at the front. You just work hard, keep your head down, and people will recognize that you're doing a good job. But of course, when you translate that into a different culture and society, people don't always recognize. They might think that person works really hard, but they have nothing to say. They have no ideas, so we're not going to promote them. Yeah. So it's a bit of a tricky balance so that people have to try and understand where that person's coming from. They may have amazing ideas. They just feel they can't tell them because they don't want to waste their boss's time. They don't want to say something stupid that will make them look stupid or make the company look stupid. So, yeah, for me, definitely it was an inhibition.
You really hit the nail on the head, because I remember a cohort, I gave a workshop to women in leadership, and we had primarily individuals from Far East, Southeast Asia, but living in the Western world. And they had, when you got them to open up, so it was a very interactive sessions. And once they opened up, they were flourishing with ideas, flourishing. I mean, I was like in amazement how creative they were. And they're very much in the tech industry. But when it came to communicating in meetings or saying yes to panels, no. And then when you ask them why, they're like, well, what am I going to contribute? And it was a very high level of, I thought it was discernment, but it was also this face, they call it the face value factor, right? How much of that is factored into the way you're going to communicate. And it's amazing how people were perceiving it as well. It's completely, sometimes I'm baffled by the whole makeup of it. And I just go, okay, all right. I get it. And so now that you help individuals, you have 4 or 5 mentees. What is the main thing you often find you sharing what is that golden nugget or that golden message you always come back to?
Well, I think there are just a few really key things about starting any business, whatever it is, as first of all, a lot of people have a great idea. So like everyone we know probably has a great idea, a great book, but most people never act on that. So the fact that you've actually got a great idea and you're acting on it makes you quite special. So that's the number one thing people have to remember, is that already they're in a special group, a much smaller group of people. And that's something you need to hold on to because it's tough. And the second thing is you need to have a good idea. So you need to have a great USP, unique selling point. What is going to make we all work hard for our money. What is going to make your idea make somebody reach their hand into their pocket and give you their hard-earned money? It has to be something pretty powerful. So you need to make sure that your idea is powerful and that you can prove that it's powerful. And then I would say those are the first things. That's really important. The second thing is always have an elevator pitch. So, one day you're on your way to source something for your manufacturing or go meet maybe a possible employee, and you get into the lift and there's Elon Musk. Okay, you're in the lift with Elon Musk. You've got 20 floors to go. What are you going to say? Are you going to just stand there like a lemon? No, you're going to pitch him. You're going to say, oh my God, I'm in a lift with Elon Musk. My name is, this is what I do. You've got to, let's speak. And if you don't have that 3 or 4 sentences of what you do, that's so mind catching that Elon's going to turn and go, all right, yeah, let's have a chat. You need to be prepared because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know when it's going to be. And it will happen. And if you don't have that pitch prepared, and you're like, well, what I do is it's sort of like, well, if you think of, forget it, they've left the lift and thought, oh, I need to get away from this person. So have your elevator pitch prepared wherever you are. And then the third big thing is network. You don't realize what a big network you have. Whatever age you are, if you're young, use your parents' networks. They might know somebody who knows somebody. Ask your teachers, ask, your older brother or sister if they're already working, or your professors if you're at university, or if you've had a career before you, pull in all those networks, create new networks on LinkedIn, which is more or less where we met, really. Yeah. And it's so powerful, isn't it, LinkedIn? So all these networks just mean that one day you might find that one person who's like, oh, just fits. for whatever it is that you need. And somebody might invite you onto their podcast. Somebody might invite you onto a panel. Somebody might invite you to write something or become a trustee, or, all sorts of things. So those are the three first things that I start with, because they are universal. It doesn't matter if you're building a data project or if you're building, I don't know, a cement company. You still need to say why your product is great, how you would sell it to somebody in less than a minute, and how you can make it work with your networks. Because at the beginning, that's kind of all you have.
Yeah. I don't think it's easy at all. I mean, I struggle with that elevator pitch. I won't say, if I had Elon Musk in I would be like,
no, you have to work on it, Kirti. You've got to have your 3 sentence where Elon, you're going to love what I do. Why? Boom. Blow him away.
Eileen, the sass. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to be like, can you act as Elon Musk? And try it out. Every time I go into an elevator now, I'm going to be like, can you pretend?
Yes. It's important. If you're thinking of growing, if you want to be big, which is what most people start with, they think, we're going to be really big. At every layer, you need investment. Every time you grow, you need investment to get bigger. It never ends. You always need money coming in, generally externally. And so you need people who are either angel investors or VCs, or just interested individuals like Elon, who thinks, that's a great idea, Kirti. Here, take a cool $1 million and see what you can do with it.
Oh, okay. I better go meet Elon Musk. No. But Eileen, so you help all this, you've overcome, you've leveraged also your heritage. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Stay tuned for part 2 next week. And if you did like it and you do find this offers a lot of wealth and value, not just for yourself, but someone else out there could benefit from it, do share it out with them. Also, send me an email or a DM. Let me know what your thoughts are. And also, maybe there would be something you'd like me to share on podcast. This is a platform for you. So look forward to hearing from you. Until next week.